Before going on to the next, I want to adjust the display because we will be adding a connection network inside the piece that will be impossible to see if they stay opaque. First, turn off mesh edges from the Grasshopper display options. Then, unpreview the AOA display and preview just the edges using a line weight component from Human. I'm going to add a swatch to make these black. From the Display tab, under Color select Split AHSV and Color HSV. We can keep the hue, saturation and brightness values and adjust the opacity, A input with a slider. The meshes output by the display component have color data saved in them, so here we can't use the usual custom preview component. We need to use mesh color to overwrite. Normally this component wants a color for each vertex on the mesh, so the first effect is some kind of checkerboarding. But to give each mesh an overall color, first disconnect one of the inputs, then graft both inputs in the right-click menu and reconnect. Now the slider will have an effect. 0 is completely transparent, 1 completely opaque. This video introduces XData, that is extra data, which is data that can be associated to each element after the simulation has run. Most often in assembler models, this is high-res geometry that has all of the architectural features for visualizing, but which would slow down the engine and aren't needed at that stage. But the XData can be anything: text, geometry, materials, and even a mix of data types. In this example, the associated data will represent a connectivity network that will help identify linkages across pieces. Return to the initial module and draw a set of line segments that connect from each handle to a common center point. The endpoints should be precisely at the anchor points of the handle, so that when another piece is placed, it will form a continuous chain. Reference these to a curve param and select from Assembler tab and Components toolbar, construct XData. The curves will be the data input D. They need their own label, like Network A, and they should be associated to the assembly object. On the other side of the engine in the post-processing area, add a deconstruct assemblage component. This simply exposes the elements that are grouped in the AOA output separately, so that in the AO output each object is listed. Also in post-processing menu, select Associate XData. This copies all the curves, but only in memory, not in the visible geometry. For that you need to deconstruct XData as well. This splits the XData back to the inputs, labels, L, and data D, as well as the name and plane from the AO input. Put the curves into a line weight preview with a thickness, and the rest can be hidden. For connectivity analyses, this can be used in conjunction with the shortest walk component. This has to be installed as a separate plugin. You should use explode curves to get all the individual segments in a flattened list and flatten and remove duplicate vertex points. To start, you can select just the first and last points in this list, using list item components and 0 for the first index. -1 for the last index, because negative numbers in a list means to count backwards. Make a line between these points, and the shortest walk component will find the segments in the network that connect those points and trace a polyline across the route. Again, this is easier to visualize with a thick line weight. Use a pointless component to see the index number for each point, and you can then select specific paths to trace. If the numbers don't appear immediately, try a larger value in the size input. If no connection is found, there might be some misalignments in your network, places where the XData curves don't exactly meet the handles. From here, there are all kinds of fun things that can be done, especially on complex assemblages, by analyzing multiple paths and combining them. For example, taking all possible paths from one origin point to every other vertex. This is called a minimum spanning tree, and then visualizing it as a kind of flow or Sankey diagram. I won't go into detail on this on video, but the file will be available.